Folks, I've been living with a biochip for almost 2 years now. It's a very small piece of hardware with some memory and antenna in it, covered by so-called bioglass, which essentially makes the chip friends with human body. Most of the time, the chip is asleep. It doesn't require any power. So essentially, any NFC reader, which could be anything from a smartphone to a subway turnstile, can power up the chip when I touch it, so it enables reading and writing capabilities, and when I'm done, the chip goes back to sleep. Technically, I can interact with anything. All you need to know is how to code. But you must be wondering, why did I do that? So, yeah, right? So, in the era of Internet of Things, I really wanted to learn what it's like to be a machine. How does it feel to be part of it? So I performed hundreds of experiments on myself. So basically, I learned how to open doors with no keys, how to unlock smartphones with no pins, how to log into websites with no passwords, etc., etc. And of course, as a Star Wars fan, I couldn't resist the temptation of the light side. So with some money tuning of Microsoft Kinect and some weird engineering, we made this door obey my force push, which technically makes me the first Jedi, JJ. Something to think about it. So. But the main breakthrough didn't come up from this experiment. Actually, it came up from an experiment that nobody thought to become big. So we set up a laptop and a smartphone so I could live my normal life with one minor difference. I would use my biochip as the only form of my internet ID, which means literally that we were tracking my, every second of my private digital life. And the results stunned me. Basically, when we looked at the data, at my data, we started to see patterns. So the way I type, the mistakes I make, the typos, the way I move the mouse, everything, the routes I'm taking every day, the vocabulary I use in my private messaging, all that, of course, had some, elements of chaos and unpredictability in it. But overall, I understood that the more I track myself, the more predictable I am. My life looked a bit programmed from very specific blocks that were pretty, specific to me, if it does make sense what I'm saying. So this is where it hit me. My personal data over time is something that's very complex, but at the same time it reminds me of something. Human DNA. Because if you think about it, and this is basically why I called my invention digital DNA, because essentially human DNA is a IKEA-type manual to our bodies, right? And digital DNA, I think, is a layer. It can be considered a layer of a human DNA. In a way, they're inseparable, because human DNA, if you think about it, it contains physical data, very specific. For example, like probability of certain diseases, or that you have blue eyes. Digital DNA contains, it's very similar. It contains information about you as a character, as a personality, right? And I think that everything connected to the web has a personality, a digital identity, if you will. And I would argue that this very digital DNA is in fact the foundation of artificial life, the part of life that we are now part of. And when I started my experiment, I was feeling very optimistic and enthusiastic about the biohacking thing. I still am. The problem is the chip made me see the terrifying future that our kids would have if we do not change the attitude to private data. You see, in 1992, there were roughly 1 million computers connected to the web. Computers were manufactured and marketed and sold as tools, and we were users. The forecast for 2020 is roughly 50.1 billion devices. And it's kind of different because they are not tools anymore. They are an interface between life and artificial life, and we are not users. We are sensors for a huge system that we do not own or control. The problem is our digital DNAs today, they belong to everybody but us. And of course, most people, they do not understand the true value of their digital DNAs. It's okay, it's going to take time to get there. But the problem is the lack of awareness does not give the right to corporations to use us as tools. You see, access to billions of digital DNAs can be used for manipulation. We are exposed, we are vulnerable. Every flaw we have can be actually exploited. For example, you don't want to buy something, you don't want to waste money on some stupid stuff. They would find a tailored to you motivation, that would work specifically for you, and you won't resist, because essentially what digital DNA is a cheat sheet to your, to your psychology, to your brain, and to your life, right? If you think that this is not relevant to you, you're wrong. It's a proved fact that computer would always beat human at chess. But it's not because the machine is smart. It's because it has a very, very huge database of the best players on the planet, and another fat database of all games and all moves ever played. So the minute you start playing, it actually starts to see a pattern, analyzes your moves, and comes up with all your moves before your tiny human mind comes up to those very decisions. And I would tell you, horrifying stories for the whole night, but it's not the point. The point is, it's not chess anymore. Behavioral analysis is being used to change, to alter our behavior. They make us do things we might do differently. For example, when was the last time you were pushed online to buy Henry Miller or Hemingway or Dostoevsky? The thing is, we are being pushed, marketing messages that are honestly some BS, because we're being told that, let's say, privacy is something you use to pay for a free service. The truth is, if the product is free, the product is you. And privacy is just a made-up word that in fact means freedom. And freedom is not for sale. Freedom actually is something that is ours by birth, and we have full rights to protect it, especially when we feel that someone is taken away from us. And that being said, let me share a crazy observation with you today. I've been terrified of a cyborg uprising since forever, but I never could have imagined that I would become one of them. So the good news is, my team and I were working on a solution for that, a very high-tech thing that hopefully would get us back into the driver's seat. Because digital DNAs, they must belong to the rightful owners, people who would decide how it's being used. And if you indulge me, I really want to change the world. Thank you. Thank you very much.